For 45 years, I served as a dedicated Hindu priest in the heart of Varanasi, guiding countless people through sacred rituals and ancient traditions. My name is Rajesh Sharma, and the story I'm about to share with you appended everything I believed about spirituality and truth. 3 months ago, during what was meant to be an ordinary prayer ceremony at my temple, my heart stopped. Doctors later told me I had been clinically dead for 5 minutes, but in those moments, I experienced something that felt timeless, an encounter that changed my understanding of the divine forever. What I saw in that time was not Krishna, Shiva, or any deity I had faithfully worshipped throughout my life. Instead, I came face to face with someone I never imagined meeting, Jesus Christ. The experience was so vivid, so undeniable, that I knew I had to risk everything, my position, my community, even my family, to share it. You might wonder why someone like me, a lifelong Hindu priest, would take such a risk. But when you've witnessed what I have, staying silent is simply not an option. What I learned in those 5 minutes holds the potential to transcend centuries of religious division and reveal a truth that goes beyond human comprehension. The morning of September 13, 2017, began just like any other. I woke up before dawn, completed my morning rituals, and put on my saffron robes, just as I had done for decades. The air was thick with the comforting scent of sandalwood incense as I prepared for the morning arati. Everything felt routine, yet I had no idea that this day would lead me down a path I never expected. Our temple, a historic and sacred space, was particularly lively that day. A wedding was scheduled later in the afternoon, and the temple was bustling with visitors seeking blessings. I recall the warmth of the oil lamps as I began the ceremony, their golden glow dancing on the walls. The harmonious chants of the devotees filled the air, creating an atmosphere of devotion and reverence. Then I felt the first sign, a faint tightness in my chest. As a priest, I was accustomed to ignoring physical discomfort during rituals, having been taught that the body is merely a temporary vessel. But this sensation was different. The pressure in my chest began to intensify, making it increasingly difficult to breathe, as though I were inhaling through a narrow, closing passage. I fixed my gaze on the Murti of Krishna before me, his serene features blurring as beads of sweat formed on my brow. The brass bell I held felt suddenly heavier than ever before. The last thing I remember before everything went black was the sound of the bell slipping from my grasp, its haunting ring echoing through the temple as it struck the marble floor. Looking back, the warning signs had been there for weeks: persistent fatigue, occasional shortness of breath, but I had dismissed them. I was too focused on my responsibilities to pay attention to my own health. That morning, however, my body finally gave out. The doctors would later describe it as a severe cardiac event. But no medical report could capture what truly happened. As my body collapsed in front of the altar, my consciousness embarked on a journey that defied everything I had ever believed. The brass bell had always been a constant presence in my rituals, its weight familiar in my hands after decades of service. But that day, when it slipped from my grasp, the sound it made was unlike anything I had ever heard. It resonated through the temple, not just as an echo, but as a ripple that seemed to extend far beyond the physical world. Each wave of sound felt as though it was carrying me further from reality, pulling me into something vast and otherworldly. Even now, that sound remains etched in my memory, not just as a reminder of the moment my body gave way, but as a gateway to the extraordinary experience that followed. When the initial surge of panic subsided, I found myself enveloped in an emotion I hadn't expected: shame. Not fear for my fleeting life, but shame that I had broken the sacred protocol. The bell, passed down through generations of temple priests, had never touched the ground during a ceremony. Yet here I was, watching it fall, the resonating chime echoing through the temple. My training was so deeply ingrained that even as death loomed, my primary concern was for the ritual, not for myself. The devotees who had been gazing at me with reverence moments earlier now stared with alarm. Their faces, once calm and composed, shifted to expressions of shock and worry as they realized something was wrong. How strange it is, I thought, that even in moments of crisis, we cling to our roles, our duties, the routines that define us. The pressure that had been building throughout the day, something I had dismissed as simple fatigue, suddenly transformed into something much more ominous. It coiled around my chest with an intensity one can only compare to the grip of a python. Every breath was an effort, as if the air itself had thickened into a heavy, unyielding substance that resisted my lungs' attempts to draw it in. My heart, which had carried me through decades of prayer and meditation, now faltered under this invisible weight. The sensation was both overwhelming and strangely detached. It was as though I were observing the collapse of my body from a distance, as though it were happening to someone else. My years of spiritual practice had prepared me for this detachment, allowing me to witness the failing systems of my body with a calm, almost clinical awareness. The temple's familiar interior, the carvings on the walls, the rows of devotees, the flickering oil lamps, began to distort before my eyes. The faces I had seen every day for years blurred and shifted, as though viewed through rain-streaked glass. Their voices, calling out my name in alarm, seemed to grow fainter, as if they were coming from a distant shore. The intricate carvings on the temple walls, carvings I had studied during countless meditative sessions, began to dance in my vision. They twisted and swirled, creating a kaleidoscope of colors and shapes. It was mesmerizing, almost beautiful, like a final gift from the material world as it prepared to release me. When my legs finally gave out and I crumpled to the floor, the cool marble met my cheek with surprising gentleness. That marble, which had always been a constant in my life, a solid and unchanging presence in the temple, now seemed to embrace me. The vibration of the fallen bell continued to pulse through the stone, traveling through my body like the closing notes of a symphony. It felt fitting that my last sensation in the material world would be this connection to the temple, the sacred space that had shaped my life. As the external chaos of concerned voices and frantic movements erupted around me, I felt an unexpected peace. The years of devotion, meditation, and prayer hadn't just prepared me for life. They had prepared me for this moment of transition. The pain that had gripped me so tightly only moments earlier suddenly lifted, replaced by an indescribable lightness. All the concerns, attachments, and rituals that had seemed so important a short while ago fell away, like leaves from a tree in autumn. What remained was the essential truth of existence, a purity I had only glimpsed during my deepest meditative states. I realized this wasn't an ending, but a culmination, the final chapter in a lifetime of seeking. My last conscious thought didn't form as a prayer to any specific deity. Instead, it arose as an unspoken understanding. I was ready. Instead of the elaborate mantras and ritualistic phrases that had once dominated my days, there was only a simple primal acknowledgement of the divine, an essence that transcended all names and forms. All that remained were 3 words: I am ready. These words encapsulated everything: acceptance, surrender, gratitude, and a quiet awe at the flawless orchestration of it all. As my consciousness prepared to leap into the unknown, these words emerged effortlessly, as though they had always existed, waiting in the deepest recesses of my being. In this ultimate moment of truth, every pretense fell away, leaving behind the pure essence of faith. People often describe death as a doorway, but they are mistaken. It's more like the gradual dissolving of a boundary you never realized was artificial. As my consciousness slipped free from my earthly form, I anticipated the celestial procession promised by sacred texts, the guides with their scrolls of judgment, the chariots of light bearing souls to their final destinations. But what unfolded was something entirely different. The ancient stories disintegrated like weathered parchment before the reality that awaited me. I found myself immersed in what I can only describe as living light. It wasn't the harsh, burning radiance of the sun, but something infinitely more fundamental. This light was alive, possessing awareness, intelligence, and perhaps even compassion. It didn't just illuminate, it communicated, speaking a language beyond words. Each pulse of this luminous consciousness unveiled deeper layers of understanding, as if reality itself was gently peeling back its masks. The physical world, which had always been my sole frame of reference, now seemed crude and limited compared to this new dimension. My body, once so integral to my sense of self, dissolved with the weightlessness of a silk scarf caught in a gentle autumn breeze. In this dissolution there was no fear, only a profound sense of rightness, as if I were finally releasing a burden I had carried so long that I'd forgotten it wasn't a part of me. The transition carried an ineffable grace. Each moment flowed into the next with a smoothness that felt both impossibly slow and startlingly sudden. I was being drawn upward, but upward fails to describe the true nature of the movement. It was more like expanding in every direction simultaneously while remaining perfectly still. Even the concept of direction lost its meaning as I moved through layers of reality I had never known existed. Each layer revealed new truths, new ways of being, making my previous understanding of existence seem like trying to view an ocean through the narrow lens of a keyhole. Every sensation transcended traditional perception. Colors existed without light, music without sound, understanding without thought. Each moment was a complete symphony of revelation, as though truth itself had become tangible and immediate. Knowledge flowed into me, not as new information, but as a profound remembrance of what I had always known but somehow forgotten. The experience defied the constraints of human language. How does one describe a taste to someone who has never eaten, or explain color to someone who has never seen? Yet, throughout this profound transformation, one overwhelming sensation dominated: homecoming. It was as if, after a lifetime of searching, I had finally returned to the place where I truly belonged. It was a return to a home I had never consciously known, a place both profoundly unfamiliar and intimately recognizable. It felt like waking from a dream only to realize that what I had believed to be reality was the dream all along. This realization carried a poignant blend of emotions, a deep joy in finally coming home mingled with a quiet sadness for having forgotten this place for so long. Time, that ever-present construct that had defined my earthly existence, dissolved into irrelevance. I existed in a realm where past, present, and future were not separate but facets of one eternal moment. What felt like eons of understanding condensed into what the earthly mind might call seconds, yet each of these moments expanded into infinite depths of clarity. I was everywhere and nowhere at once, experiencing everything and nothing, fullness and emptiness, unity and dispersion. The paradox of this state was not confusing, it was illuminating. It was as though I was finally seeing the entirety of existence, where apparent contradictions merged into harmonious truths. This revelation did not arrive as a sudden jolt, but as the culmination of countless quiet moments spent in meditation, where my prayers, whispered to Krishna, seemed to converge into a singular clarity. The familiar sense of sandalwood and jasmine that had so often accompanied my devotional practices faded as an immense presence filled the space, not gradually, but in a single breathtaking instant that defied any natural law. I had expected the familiar blue radiance I had come to associate with Krishna, but what unfolded before me transcended any expectation. Pure light, brilliant beyond the sun yet gentle enough to behold, began to coalesce into a form both human and divine. As this presence took shape, awareness bloomed within me, and my heart recognized what my mind could barely grasp. This was Jesus Christ. Not the figure I had seen in paintings or sculptures, but the living embodiment of divine love. His face radiated a beauty no artist could capture, a perfect balance of strength and tenderness. When our eyes met, I felt as though every moment of my existence, every joy, every sorrow, every whispered prayer, was laid bare and fully embraced. There was no need for words. In that sacred space, understanding flowed effortlessly, as if thoughts themselves were refracted through prisms of light, perfectly transmitted and received. Time ceased to exist, or perhaps it expanded infinitely, creating a moment of eternity in which every truth I had ever sought was revealed. The appearance of Jesus was both a disruption and a confirmation of everything I had ever believed. The foundation of my spiritual practices shook, yet their deepest truths stood affirmed. Every morning spent in meditation, every hymn sung in devotion, every moment of seeking, they all now appeared in a new and profound light. It wasn't contradiction I found, but completion. It wasn't replacement, but fulfillment. This revelation did not feel like a rejection of my past devotion to Krishna, but its ultimate affirmation. The love I had glimpsed in the stories of Krishna now stood before me, fully realized, wearing a different form but emanating the same eternal truth. It was as if every prayer, every act of devotion, had been guiding me along a trail, each step leading me to this transcendent moment of recognition. The realization washed over me like waves. The universe was vaster, more inclusive, and more beautiful than I had ever dared to imagine. My understanding had been like peering at an ocean through a tiny keyhole, limited and narrow. Now the vast expanse stretched out before me, its magnitude overwhelming and breathtaking. This moment wasn't about discarding one truth for another. It was about realizing how all truths intertwined and unified under the light of divine love. The visions began as faint whispers, then surged over me like waves, each revelation crystal clear and undeniable. I glimpsed a world transformed, reshaped beyond recognition, yet hauntingly familiar. I watched as technological progress steadily altered our cities, homes, and even our perception of humanity. Buildings evolved into living organisms of glass and circuitry, and the boundary between physical and digital realities dissolved until they were almost indistinguishable. These weren't distant possibilities. They were fragments of a future so near I could almost reach out and touch it through the thin veil of the present. Artificial intelligence emerged as a central theme in these visions, but not in the apocalyptic manner imagined by science fiction. There was no dramatic uprising or sudden awakening. Instead, I saw a gradual, almost imperceptible integration, as AI wove itself into the very fabric of human consciousness. It became a mirror, reflecting both our potential and our limitations, forcing humanity to grapple with profound questions about the nature of consciousness, free will, and creation itself. Who are we to act as creators, I wondered, when we have yet to fully comprehend the depths of our own minds? This evolving relationship between humanity and its digital creations became the defining spiritual and philosophical challenge of our time. The weight of this revelation pressed heavily on my spirit. Humanity stands at a critical crossroads, a juncture unlike any other in history. Our technological advancements have finally caught up to our most ambitious dreams, yet our collective wisdom lags dangerously behind. The clarity of this message left no room for doubt. We must advance our spiritual understanding as swiftly as we develop our technical knowledge, or risk losing the essence of our humanity in the process. This wasn't merely about avoiding disaster. It was about seizing an unprecedented opportunity for transformation. As the visions unfolded, I saw modern communities fracturing under the strain of digital isolation. People, surrounded by endless streams of connectivity, found themselves yearning for real, meaningful human contact. Social media expanded its reach, yet true human connection diminished, creating a paradox of connection without substance. But within this bleak outlook, I saw something extraordinary, the beginnings of a great awakening. Even the technologies that seemed poised to divide us held the seeds of potential unity. I witnessed humanity leveraging these tools to forge new kinds of connections, not rooted in physical proximity but in spiritual resonance. Shared consciousness and collective understanding offered glimpses of a brighter path forward. In those moments, I saw the immense potential of our species. We stand poised on the brink of either our greatest achievement or our most devastating failure. The difference will not lie in our technical capabilities, but in our spiritual discernment. The future I witnessed demands immediate action, not just in laboratories or boardrooms, but within hearts and minds. It is a call to align progress with wisdom, innovation with compassion, and connection with meaning. We must prepare not only for a technological revolution, but for a profound spiritual evolution. In the stillness of meditation, a message came to me with unparalleled clarity, so simple and pure that it left me breathless. Speak about love. Not in grandiose poetic terms or philosophical musings, but as the raw transformative force it truly is. As the words settled deep into my awareness, I understood this wasn't about the casual way we often toss around the word love in everyday life. It was about something infinitely deeper, a fundamental force that pulses through the very fabric of existence, binding creation in a harmonious dance of unity and purpose. In this divine revelation, I was shown how humanity's understanding of love has been fractured, diluted by fears, and limited by our narrow perspectives. We've confined it to romantic feelings or familial obligations when, in truth, it is the force that holds galaxies together and breathes life into every atom. This love transcends the boundaries we've constructed, of faith, culture, and belief systems, stretching far beyond the artificial walls we've built between ourselves. From the vantage point of divine consciousness, our earthly divisions appeared petty and unnecessary, mere illusions. They were like the quarrels of children fighting over whose toys are better, while all along, we've been playing in the same boundless garden. The love I was shown exists in a realm where labels, Christian, Buddhist, Muslim, lose their significance, replaced by an overwhelming recognition of our fundamental interconnectedness. This revelation wasn't meant to invalidate individual spiritual traditions, but to show how they all originate from the same eternal source. From this elevated perspective, humanity's divisions, wars fought in the name of God, prejudices justified by sacred texts, communities splintered by competing claims to absolute truth, appeared as tragic misunderstandings of our shared spiritual heritage. Christ's presence in this vision wasn't confined to any single faith or tradition. He was not the exclusive figure of one religion, but rather a universal embodiment of divine love, reaching out to all of humanity. The message was unmistakably clear: we stand at a pivotal moment in human spiritual evolution. The old paradigm of exclusivity and competition among faiths is dissolving, not because our traditions have failed us, but because they have brought us to this transformative threshold. It became clear to me that, like tributaries converging into a great river, our diverse spiritual paths are being called to recognize their shared destination. Truth is not confined to a single tradition or teaching. It flows like water, taking the shape of whatever vessel contains it, yet remaining unchanged in its essence. The divine reality I glimpsed exists beyond human classifications, yet it finds expression through all of them. This revelation wasn't a call to abandon existing faiths or create something entirely new. It was an invitation to see the unified field of spirit that has always existed beneath our surface differences. The mission I was entrusted with carried both a great privilege and a heavy responsibility. I was shown how the spiritual traditions of the East and West, often seen as fundamentally different, are actually complementary expressions of the same ultimate truth. The East's focus on inner transformation and the West's emphasis on a personal relationship with the divine are not opposites. Instead, they are two facets of the same infinite reality, each offering insights that enrich and complete the other. In this realization, I saw the possibility for humanity to move beyond division, embracing a universal truth that celebrates diversity while honoring the unity that binds us all. But essential elements of a comprehensive spiritual understanding. This bridging of traditions isn't about erasing distinctions or creating a spiritual melting pot. Instead, it's about recognizing how different paths illuminate unique facets of the same transcendent truth. Just as light passes through a prism and splits into many colors while remaining fundamentally one, so too does divine reality express itself in diverse ways. Our role is to honor both the unity and the diversity, understanding that each tradition offers invaluable insights to humanity's spiritual journey. The challenges ahead, environmental, social, and spiritual, demand that we draw upon the collective wisdom of all traditions. The time for spiritual isolationism has passed. We can no longer afford to separate ourselves by our inherited beliefs. The divine reality I encountered is both absolute and intimate, unified and diverse, transcendent and immanent. It calls us to broaden our understanding beyond the familiar boundaries of what we've been taught, while deepening our respect for the distinct beauty each tradition contributes to the human family. Returning to my body was abrupt, almost violent, like being compressed into a vessel far too small after experiencing the infinite. Every nerve protested as my consciousness slammed back into the constraints of flesh and bone. I had been weightless, boundless, free from the limitations of physical form. Now, the simple act of existing in this dense material body felt suffocating, as if being trapped in a suit designed to contain something far greater. Each breath required effort. Each heartbeat thundered as a reminder of my physical confinement. The pain came in waves, sharp, clinical jabs from medical interventions mixed with a deep, cellular ache of returning. Yet these sensations were faint compared to the deafening silence left in my soul. The absence of the divine presence I had felt was a void so profound it threatened to collapse upon itself. How could I continue breathing after tasting the breath of God? How could I walk on solid ground after dancing among the stars? I felt like a deep-sea diver who had seen sunlight filtering through crystal waters, only to be dragged back into the murky depths. The weight of the world pressed on me, heavy with expectations and concerns that now seemed trivial. Yet beneath the discomfort and longing was a certainty, a profound understanding that transcended the physical pain. This body, this fragile vessel, was necessary for what lay ahead. It would be the instrument through which the truths I had encountered would need to be shared. As my surroundings came into focus, the hospital room materialized. The harsh fluorescent lights felt like a pale imitation of the radiance I had just left behind. Slowly, I began to discern familiar faces, my mother, father, sister, hovering near me, their expressions a blend of joy and worry. Relief was etched into their features, but behind it, I could sense their unspoken questions and concern. Yet there was something in their eyes that hinted they sensed a profound shift, an unspoken realization that the person they had known was not entirely the same. How could I explain that the son and brother they had welcomed back had been changed at the very core of his being? Their familiar voices flowed over me in Hindi, filled with questions and words of comfort. Yet my tongue felt heavy and unfamiliar, as if it no longer belonged to me. Finally, from a depth beyond memory or culture, a single name emerged. "Jesus Christ," I whispered, the words carrying a weight and meaning I had never comprehended before. The shock on their faces mirrored the seismic change within my heart. In that instant, the chasm between my old life and the path ahead stretched wide and insurmountable. Time seemed to freeze as the enormity of my reality crystallized. On one side was the life I had carefully built, respected, stable, and secure. Years of devotion to tradition and societal expectations had anchored me there. On the other side stood a truth so profound that it burned within me, demanding expression, no matter the consequences. The decision before me was starkly clear: to maintain the silence of comfort, suppressing the truth, or to step forward into an uncertain future, led only by the certainty of the divine encounter I had experienced. Each heartbeat seemed to pulse with urgency. Each breath carried faint echoes of the presence I had felt. The message I had been given, one of unity and preparation, was not meant to be hidden. The world needed it, even if sharing it meant sacrificing the life I had known. In the sterile hospital room, surrounded by the machinery of modern medicine and the familiar faces of my family, I made my choice. The truth would not remain silent, no matter the cost. The truth I encountered in those 5 minutes beyond life was not merely a personal revelation. It was a message for all of humanity. We stand at a pivotal moment, where ancient wisdom converges with newfound revelations, and where divisions can transform into bridges of understanding. But this transformation begins with each of us. Here's what you can do today. Reflect on your spiritual path with fresh perspective. Look beyond the boundaries and labels we've placed on faith and open yourself to a deeper truth that transcends divisions. Seek the common threads that bind us all together. Foster conversations about unity. Share your own experiences of divine love, whether they arose from traditional practices or unexpected moments of clarity. Create dialogue within your community about the importance of unity in diversity. Take actionable steps to bridge divides. Participate in interfaith gatherings. Attend a service outside your usual practice, or simply reach out to someone whose beliefs differ from yours. These small gestures can spark profound change. If my story resonates with you, I encourage you to share your own experiences. What moments have shaped your spiritual journey? How has divine love revealed itself in your life? By sharing our stories, we can weave a tapestry of understanding that honors all traditions while pointing to the singular truth that unites them. When you have encountered the divine, silence is no longer an option. Your voice becomes part of humanity's greatest awakening.